It's time for another garden update. Fall is here, but there's still a lot of work to be done in the garden and lots of harvesting left to do. I recently harvested a bunch of peppers, but we still have a whole lot left to harvest. This has been a very productive year for peppers. I finally got around to trying the Double Delight hybrid pepper. It's a sweet pepper, and of all the sweet peppers I've tried this year, I like this one the best. It's even better than the 3 that I tried recently. Unfortunately, it's a hybrid, so I won't be saving seeds from this one. We've been putting a lot of peppers in the freezer, but this particular harvest went to family members. While I'm thinking about it, if you're new to this channel, be sure and hit that subscribe button. This year we're growing a wide variety of peppers, from sweet peppers to mildly hot peppers to very hot peppers and some super hot peppers. There's a lot of great flavor represented in this harvest, as well as some pretty colors. Some of you might remember all the trouble we had with animals eating our tomatoes earlier in the summer. Well, they're back. And this time they were in greater numbers, so they did a lot of damage on what ripe tomatoes we had left. Our Tasmanian chocolate tomato was very productive this year, and this is a look at the last 5 tomatoes from that plant, as well as 1 Rosita eggplant that we harvested. Even though I removed the Tasmanian chocolate, it was still setting tomatoes. I haven't talked about it too many times, but this year I grew some ginger in a container rather than out in the garden like I did last year. And when it was time to harvest, I just removed as much soil as I easily could. Then I washed off what was left with a garden hose. Then it was just a matter of removing the roots and the tops, and that left some beautiful, fresh harvested ginger. I did a video last year on how I freeze ginger, and if you want to check that out, I'll put a link down below. Back in June, I found this potato peeling in our compost pile that started to sprout. So I decided to see if I could get it to grow. I stuck the peeling in a pot and kept it watered. I didn't fertilize it. But recently I harvested what I had, and even though there wasn't a whole lot, I guess starting with the potato peeling, it's still not too bad. I planted sweet potatoes around our storm shelter just to utilize that space for another crop, and we actually did pretty well. These are some red garnet sweet potatoes, and they had some pretty nice tubers. As well as the red garnet sweet potatoes, we had several other varieties planted around the storm shelter. And we ended up getting a pretty decent harvest, considering I was mainly using these for weed suppression. And they work pretty well for that, as well as delivering a crop. These are Molokai Purple. And as you can see, there's some pretty decent potatoes there. This is the straw bale that had the red garnet sweet potatoes in it. And as you can see, it did very well. And I hope to have that video edited and posted next week. The ornamental peppers in the stackable pots have seen better days, but the rose moss seems like it's just now starting to reach its peak, so it adds a little bit of color to the garden. I usually see a few white flies in late summer and early fall when the weather starts to cool down a little, but this year we had them really bad. In early morning they have a tendency to congregate on the underside of the leaves, so that's a good time to spray. And I usually try to spray the underside of the leaves, and that flushes them out, and then once they're in the air, I just try to spray them while they're in the air. I started out with pyrethrin here, but a few days later I followed up with some neem oil. And as you can see, there's quite a few dead ones on top of the leaves now. I brought this female praying mantis indoors for a few days and fed it a couple of times. And it rewarded me by giving me an egg case. Just one of these egg cases can sometimes produce a couple of 100 babies, so I'll leave these outdoors all winter, and next spring we'll have some baby mantises. I thought our shed would be a great place to store it. I use sweet potatoes around the edge of the garden to help keep the Bermuda grass out, and it works pretty well for that, as well as producing a crop. Here's a look at just one bunch of the purple sweet potatoes that I harvested recently when harvesting around the edge of the garden. Not bad for one slip. We have 3 Musa velutina banana trees that have bananas on them, and this one just recently bloomed. We've noticed quite a few monarchs migrating through this week, and it seems like they prefer the very tall Mexican sunflower, and they land on the flowers that are about 8 feet off the ground. It's hard to imagine them flying all the way to Mexico from here, but that's where they spend the winter. Here's a closer look at one on one of the lower flowers. Cold weather is just around the corner, so I already have some straw bales ready for when I cover up the bananas and a few other plants for the winter. There's a look at our very small fig tree that I haven't talked about very much. I harvested 1 jicama tuber, and all parts of this plant are poisonous, including the beans, the pods, the leaves, the stems, and even the skin of the tuber. I left one much larger one in the ground and some smaller ones too. Here's a look at the Apocalypse scorpion peppers, and they're finally getting ripe. Even though the 7-pot chocolate peppers aren't ripe yet, you can tell just by the look of them that they're going to be some hot peppers. I thought I'd give you a look at the peppers on our hybrid black pearl project. And this one has very dark foliage, and the peppers are kind of a ruby red, which I really like a lot. And the blooms on it are purple. And the peppers start out more of a very dark purple or almost black color. So I'm going to be saving seed from this one as well as one more. Here's the peppers on the other one that I'll be saving seeds from, and it's more productive than the other pepper, but the foliage isn't very dark at all. But I'm going to be saving a lot of seeds from these, and then I'll plant a whole bunch of them and only save the plants that have the dark foliage to begin with. And it's pretty easy to tell when they're very small if they'll have dark foliage or not, so that's the plan. Not too long ago, I planted some seeds in this grow bag. In there we have some lettuce, some spinach, and some Swiss chard. And we're hoping to get a few salads out of this before the cold weather hits. Before you go, don't forget to let us know how your garden's doing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.